DJ Baller e o que outro.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to week 2 of college football coast to coast. We are previewing week 2, and this is, of course, week 2 preview show. We had a fantastic week 1, some good games, some not so good games, but of course, we're moving on, and it is week 2. It's a brand new week of college football. The closer we get to some marquee matchups, we have a couple this week that we're going to discuss in our games of the week. But first, let's take a look at our AP top 25 risers and fallers. Tyler, as usual, we're looking at those teams, particularly in the top 10 that could possibly have moved around and inside the top 25. Who is your biggest riser in the AP top 25 this week?
Yep, this is back as always, and I'm going to go with the Miami Hurricanes. They jumped up 7 spots now at number 12, and honestly, you could have stuck them in at number 10, but I think that as the season goes on, they'll definitely get there. They get Florida A&M this week, so they should be able to bounce back. You know, even though Florida A&M is one of the better SWAC schools and one of the better FCS schools, but Miami was really impressed with them. I bought a little bit too much of the hype, I believe, just in that game. You know, I just thought that Florida was going to win it just in the environment alone. But it wasn't really much of an environment because Miami's offense, I was really impressed with Cam Ward. I think the addition of Cam Ward is going to do wonders. And honestly, we saw Miami's defensive front really step up and really shut down the Gators because, you know, outside that 80-yard touchdown run by Montrell Johnson, Florida's offense just couldn't get it going all game. So really impressed with Miami and the way that the ACC is looking, you know, looking at Florida State, starting third season 0-2. Clemson, we'll see what they do this weekend against App State, see if they can bounce back after a blowout loss against Georgia. So really impressed with Miami. So they're my riser heading into week number 2.
Yeah, the very good pick there for the riser of the week. For my riser of the week, I'm going to go to a pick that Tyler probably won't like too much, and it's the one falling right behind Miami, and that is the USC Trojans. They got a big week 1 victory in neutral site in Las Vegas against LSU. That 27-20 win there is a big win for them in the grand scheme of things in their non-conference schedule, because their conference schedule is going to be pretty tough, and they needed a big win there. They jumped up 10 spots from 23 to 13. So that is a huge jump, biggest jump in the top 25 this week. And then, of course, on the flip side of that, let's get to our fallers. Tyler, who's your biggest disappointment really of this first week in college football? Maybe a team that we expected to be pretty good that just really wasn't there.
Yeah, usually when I do these fallers, I just go with the team that lost. But I'm going to go with a team that won. It's the Oregon Ducks is my faller of the week. Not really impressed with them. There's been a lot of hype around this Oregon team. I feel like everybody's just parked away Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan's of the world. And, you know, Oregon coming in with Dylan Gabriel, and this was supposed to be a high-powered offense. But you're a 40-point favorite against Idaho. And at one point, you were up 17-14, and then ended up taking a late touchdown to not really cover, but give you some breathing room there at the end as they ended up winning 24-14. So ultimately, I wasn't really impressed with Oregon. Was it, with Dylan Gabriel in this offense, their first game? Maybe it was a little bit of rust, but I mean, it's Idaho, man. It's not they're going to be like a powerhouse FCS school. They're not going to be the South Dakota State. They're not going to be the North Dakota States of this season. So really disappointing. Hopefully they can bounce back. They do have a tough matchup. I think they're going to face off against one of the better Group of 5 schools this weekend in Boise State. So Oregon's got to start playing better because they got that matchup with Ohio State looming here pretty quickly coming up on that schedule. So I'm going to go with Oregon falling 4 spots from number 3 to 7. So Oregon is one of those teams to look out for the next couple of weeks to maybe be on upset alert, especially this week at home against a high-powered offense.
Yeah, definitely a good pick there, for the fall or even with a win. Yeah, it's tough to see how they're going to bounce back from a really close game like that. For me, I'm going to go with the team that lost, and it was a marquee matchup. That's Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Notre Dame got a big win on the road there in College Station, so I'm going to take the Aggies as my faller. They fall outside of the top 25. I dropped a long ways off, in the grand scheme of things, which for them is not very good, even though they're still receiving votes. To lose at home in a game like that you really needed for your non-conference slate for this year in the win column, you lose a home game and a sold-out crowd in College Station, and kind of let Notre Dame have their way with you. So it's going to have to be a big bounce back for the Aggies. I think um, it's a tough test, and it's if you want to be good in the SEC, then you need to be able to play well, even in your non-conference matchup. So it'll be very interesting to see how they bounce back. Of course, they're at home against McNeese this week, so really no struggle there. But after that, we get into some tough matchups. So looking to see if the Aggies can bounce back from falling outside of the top 25. Of course, we'll move on to the part that everybody waits for, which is our games of the week. Let's start in the ACC per usual, Tyler. Number 14, Tennessee, is the 8-point favorite in a neutral site matchup for the Duke's Mayo Classic against the 24th ranked NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah, I feel like this line just keeps going up by the day. Like a couple of days ago, it was 6.5 to 7.5, now 8. So if you're a bet man, get on this while you can. But yeah, this is definitely going to be an early test for both of these teams. Both of these teams that I was kind of more high on Tennessee. I had them in the college football playoff. NC State, I had a dark horse just because of Chris McCall coming over from Coastal to NC State. But I'm going to start with NC State because this was a team in week number 1, like Oregon, that I was just not impressed with the way that they started off their season against Western Carolina. At one point, it was tied at the half, and then NC State ended up winning this game like 34-24. But NC State can't afford a slow start like this because Tennessee's offense can get after you. With Squirrel White, Nico coming off a fantastic game against Chattanooga. I mean, this offense just put up 69 points. I know it's an FCS school, but at least Tennessee took care of business while NC State was just messing around. So I think that really I agree with this spread. I think that Tennessee can comfortably win this game by double digits, at least by 10 points. Just really high on this Tennessee team. I think that they're really going to make their statement here. I think the difference is just like the fast starts. I think that Tennessee, I believe that they're going to get off to a fast start. I just don't think that NC State's defense is up for the challenge. Meanwhile, Tennessee's defense, they definitely have a lot of talent on all 3 levels of that defensive front. So if NC State can't really be a balanced attack, I just don't see how they can win this game. And I think they got that. Nico is going to throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. So I think that Tennessee honestly wins this pretty comfortably. I'll say 41-21. The Volunteers move to 2-0. NC State, I mean, I can't trust the ACC right now. The only team I can trust is Miami. So hopefully, who knows? NC State can prove me wrong. They can go on the field and beat Tennessee. But as of right now, after what I saw week number 1, I'm going to go with Rocky Top to win this matchup.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think obviously we know what Tennessee brings to the table and what NC State had their struggles in week 1. Tennessee got Chattanooga, so really wasn't much of a test there for them at all. But yeah, I think the true teams will show this week and see how they really stack up, with that number out to the side there and if they're deserving of it or not. And I think Tennessee can show that they can be a top 10 team in this in the country, and I think this is a good week for them to show that. I think they cover. I think this is a surefire go with the spread. Pick for the easiest one that we've had, I think, all season long in terms of all that, which you'll hear from us later about the best bets, and this possibly could be on there. But yeah, I think Tennessee is all around the better team, offensively for sure. Defensively, they're okay. They're not fantastic in my opinion. I do think NC State will be able to score in this game. I'm going to go 38-24. I think they get the 2 touchdown victory for the Vols, and we move on, uh, to another week headed to SEC play. And moving on to our next conference, let's go to the Big 12. This is going to be a slugfest, and it's not an offensive slugfest. This is going to be a defensive slugfest. Iowa State versus Iowa. The in-state rivalry continues. It will never die. This is a top 5 day in Iowa State history, I guess, every year. So Iowa State, the Cyclones, they're headed over there to Iowa, and they're going to face off against the 21st ranked Hawkeyes. The Hawkeyes are a 3-point favorite at home. Pretty close line here. It's never really been far apart. I think these teams play, I don't want to say down to each other, but they play close to each other, when they're playing against each other. So I think this is a good test for Iowa early in the season. The rest of their schedule is pretty lax with the exception of the last part of their season. But I mean, for Iowa State, this is a good chance to show that they can beat Iowa on the road and they can be a force to be reckoned with and a dark horse in the Big 12. And be kind of a middle of the road team, make a bowl game. I think that's really their goal at the end of this season, to be honest. So, and this is for bragging rights for the state. I mean, all bets are off really with things like this, especially with a 3-point line. A turnover can really make a difference. Iowa State really defensive minded team. I think more than Iowa now. Iowa's kind of shifted more to a more balanced team now, from what I've seen, especially from week 1. Of course, you got Cade McNamara now, who's in the backfield there calling the shots for Iowa. So it's very different from Spencer Petras and what's his name before him. Goodness gracious.
Oh, but CJ Beathard.
Yeah. So it's I mean, this is like completely different in terms of all that, which we could get into the meat and potatoes of how Kurt Ferentz illegally recruited him and all that mess and wasn't able to be there for the first game of the year. Boo hoo. He gets a 1-game suspension. And that's something that we can discuss. But yeah, I've got the Hawkeyes winning. I think they can cover the 3-point line at home. I give them the touchdown win. I'm going 17-10. It's going to be low scoring. Not much going on in this game. Definitely go with the under.
Yeah, I think that this is always I would not be surprised if you get like some wacky score, but it is gonna be a defensive battle. I mean, that's pretty common about this rivalry game, that really good defenses. And I could say that this is more important for Iowa State to win this game because, like you mentioned, Iowa really got a favorable matchup. I think that their biggest game on the schedule is at Ohio State. And we know how probably that game is going to go. Ohio State's probably going to win that game. But outside of that, they could really control their destiny. Maybe be 11-1, 10-2. Feel like Kirk Ferentz is always a consistent winner. So maybe Iowa could sneak into the Big Ten championship, depending on how other teams do in the conference. But Iowa State, you really look at the Big 12. It's a top-heavy conference for sure. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Utah are probably going to be the top 3. Maybe Arizona can sneak in there, especially with a big win against Mexico in week number 1. But Iowa State, not really impressed with them either. Just a 21-3 victory over North Dakota. Iowa, 49-0, 41-0 actually against Illinois State. I mean, it's just 2 tune-up games for both of the squads. But I think it's just going to be a back and forth. There's going to be like 10 punt. You're going to see on the score sheet when you look at whatever app that you use, it's going to be punt, 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 punt. There is just going to be a punt fest for the first half. So it will probably be like 7-3 at the half, and then Iowa will probably score a couple of touchdowns to make it their lead closer. So honestly, I think that Iowa, to me, is just a better football team on both sides of the ball. I think that they'll be able to run the ball effectively against Iowa State. So I'll go 24-14. I think that Iowa could definitely cover this -3. That's probably going to be one of my best bets of the week. Maybe not on the show, but outside for us, probably going to be on our parlay. But I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes in this annual rivalry game and send Iowa State home with a loss.
So we have picked the same going each way here in the first two conferences. Let's see if it changes here. Let's go to the Big Ten. Big matchup of the weekend, I would say, and talk about two teams that can score the football, at least in the past. We'll see if that's up to present day. One quarterback is returning, and the other one is fresh, new, right out the womb per se for college football. Texas is number 3. They've jumped up a spot to the third-ranked team in the country. They are the 7.5-point favorite on the road at
Yeah,
number
it's on the
10,
road. I forgot the
Michigan.
app.
Yeah, being at Ann Arbor in the Big House and being a 7-point favorite as the road team is huge. So, yeah, I honestly I think this is kind of where we see things happen when we talk about the poll. Um, how far will somebody fall in a case in this game? For Texas has got some offense this year. I mean, some scary offense. So I honestly think they will have no problem scoring the ball on Michigan's defense. Michigan looks like their defense is not as good as it was before. They've lost some key pieces to the draft, especially on the defensive line and in their secondary. So it is definitely a team that struggled to stop Fresno State last week. And I mean, I get that they only gave up 10 points, but when your offense only puts up 30, and at one point it's a field goal game, I mean, you're talking about this is some serious problems for Michigan that they could face in games like this, for example. So Texas being the road favorite is really big in this one. And um, do they come in and take care of business, or does Michigan view this as an underdog thing and they're kind of being put down too easy, at this point? So either way, it can be taken that way. I think Texas is going to have a field day in the air, um, throwing the football with Quinn Ewers back there. Definitely seasoned quarterback. He knows what he can do in that offense, and there's really nothing that can stop them. Um, so I think Texas wins this one pretty handedly. I think they can win this by 10 or 14, really. I think they cover the 7.5 on the road, which is a huge win for them and a big loss for Michigan. So I'm gonna go 28-10. I think this is probably some revisit and reevaluate for the Michigan program after this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the winner of this matchup, it could really be a boost to their college football playoff resume, specifically for Texas and for Michigan too. I think that you look at both of these schedules, the games coming up are going to be challenging, like this one in Ann Arbor. So yeah, I'm just honestly surprised that a defending national champ at home is a 7.5 point underdog. So that should tell you about how Michigan played and how Vegas is like, I don't know about this Michigan team. They're definitely not the team that they were last season. You saw Donovan Edwards. I know he scored a touchdown, but Donovan Edwards didn't really have that good of a game. That really see this offensive line, like they were just one of the most dominant offensive lines last year. And in week number 1, they couldn't even block Fresno State's defensive line. So I just don't know what they're going to be able to do against Texas's defensive line in this matchup. I know I picked Michigan on the other shows, but I'm going to go with Texas. The more I really think about this matchup, I'm just really been high on Texas. I still have some question marks with Michigan after week number 1. I just feel like with Quinn Ewers and that experience, I mean, he's played at Alabama. He's played these big environments, so this is really nothing new for him. So I think that veteran, I just trust Texas offense more. Honestly, I trust their defense after week number 1. So, I mean, we're talking about week number 1. I know it's only been 1 week, but that's really what we can really base these teams off of is that 1 week. So, I mean, Texas, they handled their business at home 52-0 against Colorado State. So I think that this is going to be a close game. But I think that Texas honestly get into the 30s here. I think that they'll be able to have a balanced attack. Look for Isaiah Bond to have a difference maker. I think that I'm going to be interested to see where Michigan places Will Johnson. Will it be on Isaiah Bond or will they be on somebody else? But I'm going to go to Texas here. I think that Michigan will keep it close there. So honestly, I'm probably not going to touch this because I think that this game can go either way, especially since this is an 11 o'clock kickoff in Ann Arbor. But I'm going to go with the Longhorns to win this matchup, 31-27.
Yeah, so close one there for you. Yeah, I've got more of a sizable victory there. We'll see what happens
Yeah, I could see
in
that
that
too. I
one.
think that Texas could really dominate this if it really gets away from Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, this this could be playoff implications in week 2 already, based on what happens here. Even though it is non-conference, it can come down to that. Texas with a big win could sneak up to number 2 in the country. And if with a Michigan win, they could sneak up into the top 5. You just don't know what can really happen here, and things will fluctuate a lot this year. I think in the AP poll that we are not accustomed to seeing in the past. So moving away from the Big Ten, let's go over to the big bad SEC. We've got a matchup here, kind of a funky one in the SEC, but it's the best one outside of some of the SEC teams we've already talked about. We've talked about 2 already in separate conferences. But we got the Arkansas Razorbacks. They're headed to Stillwater to face off against the 16th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Oklahoma State is the 7.5-point favorite at home in Stillwater. Arkansas did get a big 70-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff in week 1. Oklahoma State, on the other side of things, they took care of business in week 1 against South Dakota State. I think this was kind of where things offensively will happen for both teams. It looks like both these teams defensively could be decent this year. I think you see kind of a middle of the road game somewhere in the high 20s. Really just don't know what to expect other than I think Arkansas's rush defense has to be in tip-top shape. They're going to be up against a guy who could be warming a chair for the Heisman Trophy, and is Ollie Gordon. I think Ollie Gordon's probably he's obviously one of the top 3 running backs in college football right now. And Oklahoma State can take full advantage of that in this one if they run the ball right. Be interesting to see how Arkansas attacks Oklahoma State's defense. We've seen Oklahoma State's defense struggle in the past, especially when they start playing Power 5 schools and giving up a boatload of yardages. So I really think that this game could be a pretty good shootout and be pretty close. I'm going to actually take Arkansas to cover the spread at 7.5. I think they can keep it close. I'm going to go 31-28 and give it to Oklahoma State just because them being at home, Ollie Gordon late score, and they can finish it.
Yeah, I mean Arkansas impressed Arkansas Pine Bluff, but I mean, they really
Right.
impressed me. I got to see much more from this Arkansas team because coming into the season, I didn't really see many wins on this schedule. I really circled this one of Oklahoma State really being the swing game for them because if they can win this one, get some momentum heading into SEC play. Same with Oklahoma State. This is a big one for them. Like I just mentioned, they could be in the Big 12 race, but really impressed with Oklahoma State. I mean, South Dakota State ain't no joke, folks. They're number 1 in the FCS. They're the reigning national champs in the FCS. So this was a loaded team, a veteran team that's played in big games like this. And Oklahoma State and Ollie Gordon, he really had a good game. So I think that's going to just be the start of a really terrific season for him in his final season in Stillwater. I look at the 7.5. I think that Oklahoma State could definitely cover that. I think that Oklahoma State, as long as they can keep their balanced attack, and Alan Bowman can throw a couple of passing touchdowns. But Oklahoma State's defense, what I worry about them is have to deal with a dual threat quarterback that Arkansas is going to throw out there. So are they going to be able to limit the big plays that this Arkansas offense can do? And I think that they do. I believe in this Oklahoma State team. If this wasn't Fayetteville, I probably would have honestly gone with the upset just so the home crowd. But this is always a tough road trip to go up to Stillwater. You just saw South Dakota State fail at that place. I think that Arkansas is going to do the same thing. Bob Petrino's offense, we'll see if it can continue if explosive. I mean, if it puts up 70 points again, then I might just have to hop on this Arkansas train, but I just don't see that happening. So I'll go Oklahoma State. I think this will be close heading into the fourth quarter, and Oklahoma State pulls away with a late touchdown. So give me 38-28 with the Pokes.
Yeah, so pretty good scores there. First disagreement of the show there in our picks in the SEC. I went with the SEC team, and Tyler went with the Big 12 team. That is, mark that down, folks. That doesn't happen often. But moving away from our Power Four, let's go to our Group of Five that includes a Power Five or Power Four team. Excuse me. Um, so Boise, it's a big game. Boise State, the Broncos, they are headed to Eugene. They're up against the Oregon Ducks. Oregon's a 19.5 point favorite at home. Folks, this is an interesting one. I honestly am not sure what to think in terms of how Oregon is going to play. They're number 7 in the country. They know that Boise State is the odds on favorite to be the Group of Five representative for the college football playoff as of right now. Now, if Boise State upsets and gets a big win here, it is, I think, all but over in terms of that. If they take care of business the rest of the year, even with one loss, I think they are the Group of Five representative. This is a huge game for them and this program. If it was in Boise, that would be crazy. This would be a huge, huge game. Oregon just didn't show me enough in week one. Uh, I was really not impressed by how they moved the football, and struggling against an Idaho team at home is that makes me really worried about a game like this. So call me crazy, but I'm going to take the upset even with the 19.5. I'm going to take the Boise State Broncos. I think they can do it. I honestly think they are very undervalued in this matchup here. And I think it being at Oregon is probably pulling way too much weight on this spread. So I'm going to take Boise outright to win this game on the road, 28-24.
All right, pulling the upset on for the Broncos. Going back to the Kellen Moore days. But if you look at this Boise State squad, we got an impressive win on the road against Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's always a scrappy Sun Belt team, but they did give up 45. So this defense is going to have to play against a really talented Oregon offense, because we'll see if this Oregon offense can bounce back, because it can't get much worse than that. If you can only score – if they struggled again like they did against Idaho, then Boise State will win this one pretty comfortably, because I don't know if you saw week number 1, they just handed off the ball to Ashton Genty, and he had himself a game, over 250 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. So you know what Boise's going to do. They're going to want to run the football, and if Oregon allows them to do that once again and control the play clock and really limit the amount of possessions that Oregon's team. I think that's exactly what this Boise State team is going to do, is try and limit the possessions that this Oregon team can do. 19.5, I think Boise covers that one I think that they're giving too much hype for Oregon. We'll see. Oregon can just wipe the floor with them, but Boise's too talented. I picked them as my Group of Five representative in the college football playoff for a reason. I think it's going to come down to Boise State and UNLV in that conference. Maybe Fresno has something to say about that. But since you went with Boise, I'm not going to pick them. I think that one of us has to go with Oregon. If you would have went with Oregon, I would have gone with Boise. So I'm glad that one of us did pick Boise State, because we're both high on them. But I'm going to go Oregon here, but it's going to be close, folks. I think it's going to be it is going to be semi-high scoring. I'll go 38-31. I think that Oregon squeaks away with a touchdown victory against Boise. But if you look up at the scoreboard and see Boise State winning, would I be shocked? Absolutely not. I think that Boise State, if they win this one, undefeated season coming up.
Yeah, I mean, very, very possibly could do that and run the table and win it all there in the Mountain West and make it to the college football playoff. Side note on this game, it is a 9 p.m. game. So a little Group of Five after dark action going on here. Power Four Group of Five. It's so weird to say that now. Action at 9:00 at night. So, you'll have to keep your eyes open with some clothespins, just to watch this game here. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens in this one, and it'll definitely be a part of my bets for the weekend. Speaking of bets, let's get to our best bets of week 2. Some really good ones, I think. I know Tyler's been mixing something up in his cauldron over there. So what you got going on for week 2 bets?
Yeah, there's a lot of games, man, that you could really pick this week. You could go to the Big 12, go to that. But you know what? I'm going to go to the SEC for this one. Like I mentioned, I feel like I swung and missed on my lock really for week number one. But I really just been talking up this one. It actually went up again. Tennessee is now at 8.5, but I still feel confident. I think that Tennessee could get the double digit win. So give me the 8.5. I think that Tennessee wins the Duke Mayo Classic, and maybe Josh Heupel gets dumped with a bucket of mayo after the Vols win that matchup.
I hope he likes Mayo after that one. But for me, no, I think this is a big matchup here. We've got a Big 12 battle conference game going on, over in Salt Lake City. Baylor Bears, they're going to Utah. I think this is a big game for Utah in terms of where they stand in the Big 12. If they want to win the Big 12, it's got to be a win here, and it's got to be a big win. Utah's the 15-point favorite at home against Baylor. I do realize that Baylor did win week 1 against Tarleton State 45-3, but I just don't think that says very much at all about Baylor right now. I'm going to take Utah to win that and cover the 15. I think they can win by 3 touchdowns, to be honest with you. And I think they can honestly run away with this game and go be completely content with that going into next week.
Yeah, that game last year was like pretty much the same point spread. It was like a 12.5 or a 13.5 to Utah, and Baylor was up pretty much the whole game, and Utah had to storm their way back to come back and beat that one. But it's a different environment to go up there in Salt Lake City, so I definitely agree with that one. So I'm gonna head to American for this matchup. It's an American versus Sunbelt. I like to always sneak in a group of 5 bet of the week. And I'm going to go to a team that I am quite familiar with, and that is the UAB Blazers. Heading on the road to ULM. Give me UAB 13. I think they can definitely cover that. I was really impressed with this UAB offense led by Jacob Zeno. And then you got the star-studded wide receivers. You got Cam Shanks, Amari Thomas. And then can't forget about the running backs, too, led by Isaiah Jacobs. And then you have the young, talented wide receiver, BB Jr. So look out for that running back duo. But yeah, I think that ULM is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt. They barely beat Jackson State. They won 30-14. But honestly, they did not look good with General Booty at quarterback. So even in the road test, I think that UAB they got an impressive victory against Alcorn State, put up 40 points. Wouldn't surprise me if they put up 40 again against ULM. I just think how good this UAB offense is, and it's just going to come down to can UAB defense can stop this ULM offense. To me, that's not very good either. So I think that UAB by far is just a better team in this matchup. So give me the Blazers as a road favorite, 13 points. I think they can win that one 14, 17, 21 points. So take the Blazers to cover.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've got a couple for you. If you don't have
Oh,
any more, I've got a few.
okay. Well, go ahead and I'll finish up mine.
Yeah, I've got a good one here on the East Coast. I've got App State in Clemson. App State took care of business week 1 against ETSU, and I think Clemson being a 16.5 point favorite at home, especially after their week 1 performance when they only put up 3 points, is pretty bonkers. So App State took care of business 38-10 against ETSU. So I'm going to take App State to cover the 16.5 at Clemson. I think they will definitely keep it close. Hey, they might win. Who knows? App State is a good football team, and they honestly, I think, are my pick in the Sun Belt, probably to win the Sun Belt this year. So I think this is going to be an incredible matchup pretty early in the season. My next one is that Boise State Oregon game. I've got Boise covering the 19.5. Pretty wild for me to pick them outright. But for best bets, I did pick them, or for games of the week, I did pick them. For best bets, the best bet for that would just be to take them to cover the 19.5. There's no way Oregon's running away with that game, especially after their week one performance. And then I'll finish mine out. Last game of the night, the 10 o'clock game over there on the West Coast, Utah State and USC. Now, Utah State is a good football team, and they are kind of scary dark horse in the Mountain West. So I honestly think that USC being the 28.5 point favorite at home is wild to me. And I think
A little
you
bit of a
should
hangover.
put the house on Utah State to cover that. There is no possible way that USC is going to cover by more points than they put up in week one against LSU. Utah State has an offense, 36-14 win over Robert Morris to start the season. After that, after this next game, they've got Utah and they're playing at home. So they've got some good games coming up. And if they want to be prepared, this is a great way to get started and get going. So yeah, I definitely think that Utah State can honestly scare some people and possibly keep this one pretty close.
Yeah, I got one more here to close out our segment here for best bets for week number 2. I'm going to go to a conference that we'll probably not talk too much about, and that's the Pac-2. They're still live, ladies and gentlemen. And you got to you got to stay up late for this one at 9 p.m. Texas Tech and Washington State. I just want to give you the scores week one before I give you my pick. So Texas Tech survived week one matchup against Abilene Christian 52-51 in overtime. So that was a lot of offense. Washington State, on the other hand, 70-30 win against Portland State. So give me the over 65.5. I know that's a ton of points, but my gosh, these defenses, they cannot stop a soul. I would not be shocked if this is like a 60-55 or like a 50-40 type of score. I'm probably leaning Washington State. So if you aren't confident on that, I would go with the Cougars 2.5. But you know what? Let's go with a lot of points here. I'm going to be watching this one late on Fox, room for some points. So give me over 65.5. Would not shock me if this one gets to 100 points total.
Yeah, so there you are, guys. Best bets of week two. There's a lot of really good bets here for week
Great.
two. We're just getting started. I think this is a great opportunity for some people to get on the board early in the season. Our chance to get on the board early in the season. So we will see what happens, of course, with that. Obviously, we will see you guys for week three preview, where a lot of teams are going to get pretty close to some conference play. Some are already there, and some will be playing conference games next week. And after that, week four, man, we're jumping right into conference
Yep.
play, and it is all downhill from there. So, of course, we will see you guys again for week three preview. And guys, go show us some love over on Sports Scramble, over there on all of our social pages. Let us know what you guys want to see from us moving forward. And we will keep bringing the football content y'all's way, and hopefully you guys can win some money. Hopefully we can win some money too, because that makes us happy for the week.
Yep.
But we will see you guys again next week, and we will cover week three.